The comprehensive inclusion of all groups into the state and into all the state institutions prevents ethno-cultural tensions from escalation. We were impressed when some of the people we spoke with mentioned that the conflict of 2001 probably would not have resulted in violence if the Macedonian majority would have abstained from a Macedonian majoritarian state-building project. That was our first point. Our second insight was that the inclusion is insufficient when it only profits the elites of the non-majoritarian communities. As we have heard, party elites have always been part of the coalition government in Skopje, but the Albanian population more broadly has been marginalized in the system. Our third point has been that national symbols are emotionally important, and that it is vital to allow the expression of diverse and multiple identities and to give room for different symbols, heroes, and cultures. At the same time, and many of you have mentioned it, it is important to bring communities together and to develop shared and common understandings of the state, its history, and its future. But we have been impressed by the lady who said that imposing a unified and exclusive identity can have a very counterproductive effect. The fourth point, and I think Naum has raised it again to remember us. There are no perfect solutions to ethno-cultural conflicts. It's all about pragmatism and flexibility. These two virtues are key, both during negotiations and implementation phases. Point 5, the recognition of Albanian as a co-official language has been crucial for the post-Ohrid peace arrangement. We have also tried to figure out what we could learn more concretely from Syria, and we would think that there are strong arguments to treat the Kurdish language as the Albanian language is treated here, and we think that the risk of linguistic segregation would not exist in similar ways in Syria, because no one questions Arabic as the language of inter-community communication. Point 6, majoritarian democracy constitutes a threat to non-majoritarian groups, as they risk to end up as permanent losers and risk to disengage from the state. Counter-majoritarian mechanisms incentivize consensus democracy and compromise seeking, and are therefore crucial for the cohesion of the state. And we think, or we all thought, that the Babington Principle constitutes an interesting example of such a mechanism, because it guarantees that the agreement of non-majoritarian groups is required for all decisions really affecting their interests, such as language rights, cultural rights, decentralization, but also the appointment of judges. 7, as a rule, the majority group prefers centralized solutions. Non-majoritarian groups tend to have a stronger interest in decentralization, as it allows them to profit from local self-government. So our insight, it's not a new one, but it has been very present, that implementation of vertical power sharing is a challenge, and transition must be carefully planned. And one of us has raised this point quite clearly. transition, clear competences and timelines seem to make sense, seeing the North Macedonian case study. 8. The presence of ethnic, religious or regional parties can be seen as a symptom for a divided or fragmented society. The prohibition of such parties is not justified, not from a human rights perspective and not from a democratic perspective. And it does not help to overcome such divide, but has the potential of deepening it. While the aim of preventing the ethnicization of all politics is undisputed, party bans are not the aim to reach this goal. Point 9. It is important to enforce the Constitution by a constitutional court, which operates as a neutral mediator and includes all groups. The role of the Constitutional Court should be to enforce all human rights and freedoms, and also to solve disputes between the central and the local governments. Point 9. In a society characterized by inequalities, quotas are vital to represent ethnic and gender diversity. Their design must combine the need for inclusion, but also the need for the application of strict qualification requirements. 11. When politics are dominantly about economic development, social welfare and sustainability, then we think that ethno-cultural governance can be considered a success.